Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Racing Across America on this Sunday morning, the day after. It was a fun 2 days of racing with the Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday, Future Stars Friday with the 2-year-olds, and then yesterday the normal slate of races that a number of them deciding eclipses and other ones just being interesting in and of their own right. Hopefully everybody made a lot of money. And who else to talk to the day after than boots on the ground? Our man Steve Bick, he was there all week, did a great job as usual with the radio show, Sirius and XM's At the Races, had all the major players coming and touting horses and whatnot and giving you some good ideas. Steve, good morning.
In Capital District.
And we have to start out with, I said, I hope everybody made some money. I know people on the Steve Bick $1,500 Capital OTB Breeders' Cup bankroll team all are walking away with smiles on their faces today. And I said when we went on the air, and I was in touch with you yesterday as well, congratulations. We have the graphic up on the screen. You took the $1,500 and ran it up to $5,400 plus. Everybody on the team walks away with, I think, $270. So it was a great weekend for the bankroll team. And for folks who aren't familiar with the format, Steve had $100 to play on each Breeders' Cup race and $200 on the Classic. So it couldn't roll over the winnings. So it made it a little more challenging even with the $100, but knocked it out of the park early in the day yesterday with a cold $40 exacta with Soul of an Angel, who managed to get it done over Society. And you had a $40 exacta ticket there. You had 40 to win. So the day started out great, and you just kept adding to it. Congratulations, Steve. Nice day on behalf of the team.
Thanks, Seth. And thanks to Capital OTP for inviting me to do it. And I think there's a lesson in it, actually, for everyday players. Because taking a bankroll amount, taking a fixed bankroll, and going through your analysis of the races, and then crafting bets, it's a very useful exercise. And I encourage people, next time, not even next time around next year, I would do it on any, on any good card that you're attacking. It forced me to really, think about options and evaluate, where the value could be found, and then how to approach it. And I experimented with a lot of different things. I mean, in places like the Distaff, where you knew overwhelmingly that Torpedo Anna was going to win. There's really no point in trying to come up with something, with the button, but the way it ended up with all the scratches. So I thought, all right, let's work toward a pick 3 and a double. In other places where it seemed like there were overlay middle price long shots, that's where my bread and butter was really all weekend. Citizen Bull on Friday, Soul of an Angel, Moira, More Than Look, Post Time. These were all horses 5 to 8 to 1. And if you use them appropriate and build your tickets around those horses, plus hit them with win bets, I really was pleased with the way things unfolded, and it's something that I'll utilize in my own play. I've never really done that. Laid out a full day of not just selection and multi-race wagers, but actual individual bets. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm delighted to put money in people's pockets.
And it was fun, too, because we, the bankroll team got selected. And, again, I'm thanking you on behalf of OTB and the team. You did a great job. But the team was selected. And then I think via email, I believe everybody got your plays early on Friday and early on Saturday, and all the plays were put in early in the day. So you had it all crafted out. But then I posted them on the website as well, so folks could have followed along, being on the team or not. And they could have played along too, because and keep it in mind for future bankrolls. But again, the Philly and Mayor Sprint, your play was just that $40 exacta box on the top two, and we just played the stretch run a minute ago, and it was the winner was clear. Soul of an Angel, good call there, but it was tight for second. So to make the cold exacta box there and have the win money as well on Soul of an Angel, people could have looked at that and maybe pared it down into, because again, you bet 100 into it with a $40 exacta box and 20 to win, but people could have pared it down. And then you had all kinds of different wagers, exacta plays and trifectas, and you had some doubles and pick threes, so people could have played along as well. But again, congratulations. I'm sure it was a fun night. Just I'm sure you cashed your own tickets, and congratulations there. But having done these bankrolls myself, it's a different feeling as compared to betting for yourself, where you win and lose and you walk away happy or sad for yourself. But when you're playing on behalf of a team, if you don't have a good day, you're disappointed. If you have a day like you had, playing on behalf of other folks, it's just you're ecstatic at the end of the day.
That's really true. And as I said at some point during the day, when you noted the early success of the Philly and Mayor Sprint, I owe it all to you.
I was going to respond. I was going to say that's true, but then I was going to say, well, why didn't I have it then? All right, let's jump into it. But before we talk about the specific races, just give us a little feel. Again, great job with the radio show out there, ably assisted by Rick Hammer, and you're pulling in a lot of familiar faces that we all know on the industry side, the handicapping side, the media side, the horse side as well. So again, great job out there. But just talk a little bit about the week and the last couple of days out at Del Mar.
Well, since you went in that direction a little bit, I got to acknowledge a handful of the guests and the regulars who provided just spectacular, I thought, incredible insight. And of course, the long shot lad, Tim Humphreys, he gave out Starlust in the turf sprint. That was his best long shot of the weekend that he laid out. He had some of the obvious ones like Lake Victoria and Henri Matisse, but he also had more than looks. He had Moira, he had Soul of an Angel as second choices, and Magnum Force on Friday. So the long shot lad, Kev Humphreys, another fabulous Breeders' Cup. David Aragona was with us. David also was on Soul of an Angel. He talked about Rousham Park, who probably should have won the turf. He also gave out Magnum Force on Friday for everybody. At the races annual, the betting companion, which of course you participate in, Callie Francois, she had a mammoth write-up on Citizen Bull and how good he looked in his work coming in. So great job by Callie. Seth, you picked immersive, and then you had a couple of other good hints. Hammer gave out in the betting companion. He had both winners in the dirt mile. He was good for $650 with his $100 bankroll and $485 in the Philly and Bear turf with Moira and Gary Young. Gary Young was with us on Thursday, and he didn't have a lot about most of the races. He talked about some horses that were doing well, but then the one push that he had was Full Toronto at the dirt mile, who finished the day out for people. So I was very proud of the information that everybody brought to the show. In terms of the atmosphere, they actually got very lucky. They were concerned about rain yesterday, and then it ended up being gorgeous. But 15 minutes after the day was over, the rain came in. And they're so lucky here at Breeders' Cup. Amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy, because I know they were talking about the potential for a little bit of rain later in the afternoon. I didn't realize it did start raining after things ended.
right after. I mean, literally 15 minutes after the race was ended. Del Mar is, it's intimate. It isn't roomy. It's not like Santa Anita. It holds about half as many as Santa Anita. But there's lots of nice areas to hang out. Everybody, I think, was obviously in a festive mood. You had a fair racetrack.
Yeah.
Talk about that. There was concern that the track would be a little speed favoring. If you were fast, you could, you look at Straight No Chaser. You would have thought that in the sprint, speed wouldn't have been able to hold. But it did. The turf course played fair. From that standpoint, the racetrack was great. It was a safe day. Obviously, we lost a horse. JRB in the turf had a cardiac incident after the wire, but it wasn't. It's not a breakdown per se. It's still tragic, but it was a safe weekend otherwise, and there was a lot to like. They'll be back here again next year for those that have never been out to Del Mar, and that includes a lot of people in the Capital District because Saratoga takes our attention. It's our priority. But I would really recommend if you could make your way out here, try it.
I'd love to go because some people were tweeting at me and I said, I'm getting FOMO, fear of missing out, because there are a lot of familiar faces there. And it got me to think. Also wanted to give you congratulations because I was seeing a lot of pictures of the Turf Writers dinner the other night, National Turf Writers and Broadcasters. You were the MC and you got kudos for that. But I also want to recognize Sean Clancy got an award. Team Kenny McPeak got an award. That looked like a nice night as well.
It really was. And, really everybody there and even the Backside Learning Center at Churchill. Yeah. I didn't know their principal, their managing director, but Peyton Bradar and Donna Brothers are heavily involved in it. And I'm close to both of them, Sean Clancy and also Lafitte Pinkai III, who I'm very close to, wins the McKay Award. And then Kenny and his group, his wife Sherry and Danny Ramsey, the exercise rider. Brian Hernandez couldn't be there because he was still riding at Churchill. He didn't come in until Thursday night. But, that was a lovely evening at the Brigantine, which overlooks the racetrack. I should have actually sent a picture to you guys to show. Really, really came off nicely, and I was honored to be the MC.
Yeah, nice.
It was a great week. A great week out here.
Yeah, nice job. And like I said, I'd like to get out there next year, maybe work that out somehow. I also have to mention Tom Law got an award as well from the Turf Writers for his coverage of Breeders' Cup actions.
That's from the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah,
that's the Breeders' Cup writing contest.
Right. It was at the dinner, but it was a Breeders' Cup award. All right, let's jump into it. Classic, we'll watch the entire race here of the Classic. I took a shot with Arthur's Ride. From the 12 post, it was going to be a chore to get a position, but with the pace that they fired, it was very much of a chore, so I didn't get anything from my pick there. I did have City of Troy underneath. I will say Mike Welch last Wednesday tweeted out that watching the horse work, and I had a quote, his action seems unmistakably that of a turf horse. And that seemed to be kind of a consensus as you were listening over the last few days. And City of Troy, obviously a little bit of a disappointment. Not disappointing, though, number 11, Sierra Leone. A lot of people came up to me after the race yesterday and said, I've been on him. I just couldn't stay on him. And so some people jumped off yesterday and missed out on the $15 price on Sierra Leone. Fierceness, who attended that very fast pace, that was a nice performance from Fierceness. The number 9 winds up second. Forever Young completes a trifecta of 3-year-olds, which just seems to validate that it was a not as spectacular year in the older division. Newgate runs fourth. Again, disappointments for City of Troy. Arthur's Ride for me. But what were your thoughts in the Classic yesterday?
Well, there's a lot of satisfaction, undoubtedly, for Chad Brown with this win. They never lost confidence in the horse, and it did, coming into the week, it certainly did look like a race that was going to have an honest or even faster than honest pace. And that's what unfolded. When you go 44-4, 109-2, that's, that's racehorse time, and sets up an opportunity. So give Flavy and Pratt high marks for being patient, just, getting set up, not moving too early. And you could tell when he was being pulled into the race, you knew stretch that he was winning. It was obvious. The interesting story here, Seth, is, and yes, Fierceness ran a very courageous race. For him to be on that pace and, only beaten a length and a half, that was a titanic effort. And he goes favored, so the public got it right. The horse that was ridden poorly and ridden mistakenly was Forever Young. And, okay, I get it. He's in the one hole, and you think you have to go get position. But if things unfolded for him in this race like they did in the Derby, he and Sierra Leone, they're going to be 1-2, past the 8 ball. And instead, Sakai is forwardly placed, and that's not how Forever Young was. So they, when people are going to go back and rewatch these races and dissect things, that's one of the conclusions you're going to get, was that Forever Young probably was a little too anxiously ridden by Sakai. He was a little too worried about being shuffled back. In reality, he would have been better off getting shuffled back. After that, the City of Troy thing is a bizarre situation. For the hype to get people taken in the way it did. And I don't know what Aidan O'Brien was trying to accomplish by claiming this was the best horse he's ever trained, and this is the best chance they've ever had in the race. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
The horse was the damn side. It's one thing. There were a couple of horses that we'll talk about later, particularly the horse in the juvenile that finished third, who had never been on dirt and who was totally bred for it. This horse wasn't ever bred for dirt. And just because he's a Justify, I mean, Scat Daddy is first and foremost a turf sire. And the whole thing was strange. So anyway, lesson learned. After that, there were a few horses that really underperformed. I don't know. Ushpa Tesoro was actually 24-1. There were people making a case for him. I thought that the 4-year-olds would be much better than they were. I ended up putting Newgate on top. And I got to tell you, on the turn, I thought he was looming large. I thought he had a real shot to win. And then he got a little flat late. Senior Buscador ran very well to get the last major check. What else is there to say? The 3-year-olds were 1, 2, 3, and good for them. I think one other thing we should touch on, Seth, is that even people like Dean and Marcus Hirsch, who were not originally bothered by the placement of the Classic in this spot, we both came away. We were talking later in the day. Running this race, big card, sort of takes the drama out of the day. I got to be honest. Now, as it happened, for me, the highlight of the day was always going to be Cherie and More Than Looks in the mile and her opportunity to win. And of course, that comes off. But the Classic, as the 5th race of the day, it doesn't work. I don't know what they're going to do and how to work it out with NBC, but it really wasn't fair to Chad and everybody involved. Peter Brandt and actually Coolmore, they get a win even without City of Troy. It just, I don't know. The drama, the air kind of came out of the balloon after the Classic.
It didn't bother me. It still doesn't bother me a lot, but I get it, and I would rather have it as the last rip because it did in the middle. I will say I was out in the front half of the race book here, the clubhouse race book, and we had a good crowd, and the Classic ended, and I wondered if things would clear out. They didn't. We had the people remained for the rest of the card and enjoyed it as it is a Breeders' Cup card. So I get it, and it did. I will agree, the air came out of the balloon a little bit, but I wasn't totally upset about it. But it probably makes sense. It does make sense to have it at the exclamation point. It is the exclamation point, and it should be there. But so we'll see.
It's supposed to be, yeah. And I wasn't going to make, anybody that is involved in, television and broadcasting, understands the mechanics. And NBC spent hundreds of millions on whatever football league, college football thing that they bought. I get it. It didn't do the event any favor.
Yeah, no, I hear. All right, let's take a look at some of the other action. We'll kind of work our way back from yesterday, the finale, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, given that situation with the Breeders' Cup Classic in the middle of the card, essentially. So a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, it's going to be number 3, Full Seriano getting it done, Joel Rosario on board. Fun to see Brittany Russell bringing a horse in from the Mid-Atlantic post time. It's 7-1, winds up second. Domestic Product went off as the 3-1 favorite, winds up running third. Tumbarumba, who was that scratch last week, heads to the Breeders' Cup and winds up with a 4th place finish. What were your thoughts on the Dirt Mile?
Well, this was with all, with everything we just said about the Classic not being the last race. This was some crazy way to end the card because it was a fabulous competitive field. Yeah. And certainly for those that were playing in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, it had to be a pretty. I've seen the leaderboard. I'm anxious to hear the story. And for me, Post Time was the horse to see, and we did catch the exacta here from Bankroll. Post Time was so hot energy all week, looked spectacular. I think Sheldon Russell left him with a little too much to do. Full Serrano is a great story. This is a Argentinian bred that Costa Aronis and John Sadler acquired. And he was not a wise guy horse, but he was a horse that anybody that was watching workouts and who looked at his numbers knew was competitive. Gary Young, basically said he was the best bet of the day on our show, and Joel Rosario rode him with a lot of confidence, and 13-1 was some great price. Post Time and Domestic Product, to me, were the 1-2 and the obvious players, and they end up second and third. Tumbarumba is a nice story. He's a hard hitter. He's had a great season. Was very happy about Brian Lynch. Tumbarumba was frankly leaving. I thought he was leaving his race in the paddock. He's very high strung. And they had a handful with him, getting him ready in the paddock. Brian Lynch's wife is fighting breast cancer. We wish them the absolute best. And I know Lynchy had a win, I think, at Churchill as well yesterday. And they're one of the really good guys around the game. So we're thinking about the Lynches. I thought Katona ran very well. I threw Katona in my plays as well, and he ran very, very well. Fun way to end the day.
And again, you collected a little money for the team there with the Exacta box, so nice job there. Breeders' Cup Mile, you kind of alluded to this earlier, and it was a lot of fun. A Saratoga native, Cherie DeVoe went out on her own just a couple of years ago, essentially, and has quickly risen to the top of the training ranks and works with her husband, David Ngordo, the bloodstock agent. And she gets the Breeders' Cup victory with More Than Looks and a nice performance. Number 8 is More Than Looks. Joe Hans, who is also kind of logical off the good form out in Southern California, winds up second. The favorite was Notable Speech, the number 6 horse. goes off at 2-1, winds up third. But it was a nice performance, more than looks. Jose Ortiz on board, Cherie DeVaux, and I will note it was fun to see Nick Luck kind of lead into it, and Cherie DeVaux. To see Chuck Simon honored on the national broadcast on the Breeders' Cup was very nice, and Cherie had in memorial talking about Chuck a lot. Gave credit to him for putting her on the right path early in her career, where she was helping Chuck out. And so that was a nice addition to the story yesterday of More Than Looks winning in the mile. Your thoughts?
This was the highlight, obviously, of the day for me, and to have friends like Cherie and David Carroll to celebrate it, with them. This horse, Cherie has done an unbelievable job with More Than Looks. And Jose Ortiz, this is a tough horse to ride. And he got pace, which he needs, and Jose did a brilliant job there at the top of the stretch, straightening him out. I mean, he was trying to lug in on the horses who was inside. Jose kept them together, and then once he got clear of those horses, he just inhaled the leader. And it was obvious by past the 16th that he was winning. It just set off the most joyous celebration. There was a lot of tears out on the track apron. I don't think Nick. I was standing with them. I sent that picture in. I don't know if you guys are putting it up, but Nick was unaware of Chuck's story and where the interview was going to go, and he got teary-eyed too. And it was just it was just an amazing moment out on the racetrack. And Cherie, any of us that have been around her and Chuck, it was obvious, where her career was going to go. And it's one of those highlights that I'll treasure for a long time, being there with her.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun to see her. We had her on a couple of times up in Saratoga. I had her on, and you and I had her on as well. As she got off to a great start the Saratoga meet this year, and as I say, she's just had a great year. Early in her career is going, places obviously, and more than ready, demonstrative of that. Relatively lightly races a 4-year-old. That was only start number 11, but win number 5, and obviously a huge win for Cherie to get a Breeders' Cup victory like that. Breeders' Cup Sprint, let's take a look there. I was thinking that the potential was there, that there could be pace and it would fall apart a little bit, and so I went with the Japanese runner Remake, or Ramaki, however it's pronounced. That one just never fired in here, and it is going to wind up to be Straight No Chaser, the number 8 horse for Dan Blacker. There was some Twitter video of the TVG team, the FanDuel team. Of course, Christina Blacker, part of the team, and they were all watching the monitors and rooting as her husband, Dan Blacker, gets a Breeders' Cup victory with Straight No Chaser. And Johnny Velasquez on board, another Breeders' Cup victory for Johnny. Ben Tornado, who you mentioned before, runs second. The favorite, no surprise, Mulligan, coming out of the nice win in the Forego, winds up third, and Gun Pilot fourth. What were your thoughts in the sprint?
Well, and you alluded to it. This was a race that absolutely looked like it was primed for a collapse. And so it was, the inclination was to look at horses like Nakatomi and Gun Pilot. They were the ones who were going to come running. However, Johnny, who usually is, as Rich Migliori says, gets his position going forward. Johnny was very patient with Straight No Chaser, and he let Ben Tornado and Federal Judge set the pace. It wasn't like the pace wasn't fast, because they went in sub 22 and they went 44 flat for the half mile. So the pace was hot, but the pace was not necessarily contested. It wasn't like you had all 4 or 5 of the speed horses that were pressing each other. And so that kind of allowed everybody to be relaxed at the same time that they were going fast. And straight no chaser. I mean, Dan Slack did a great job. The horse was off a year. He brought him back with the prep. The prep was absolutely perfect. And, then he follows it up with this win. It's a big win for Dan, who, quite frankly, got himself in a pickle. I mean, he was suspended for basically, hiding workout. And he had to sit out a real suspension. So this has got to be gratifying for him because he is a good horseman. He's a horse trainer for a long time. This is a big win for his career. That Ben Tornado, I was kind of kicking myself because that was a horse who looked like he was moving forward, a 3-year-old. Jose D'Angelo is a guy that is doing a lot of good work. And Ben Tornado was working well coming in. I got away from him and was 29-1 was a terrific price. I thought Mulligan ran very well, laying off the pace. You mentioned the Japanese. Let's talk about the Japanese.
Yeah.
The two biggest stories of this Breeders' Cup coming in were how, 19 Japanese, they could win 5 or 6 races. American racing teetering on the brink. They went 0 for 18 with a scratch of awesome results. Granted, Grousham Park, we'll watch it a little bit. Grousham Park probably should have won the turf, but they were 0 for 18 with 1 second, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, and a fifth. Not exactly the weekend that they were expecting. They were also last. American Bikini was last. Ekoro C, the little rocket ship juvenile sprinter, he was last. This was a remake was last. The Japanese can go home to regroup.
It was leading into that with their results on Friday. You could see that it was kind of breaking out that way. Certainly, you mentioned Jose D'Angelo. I continue to root for him now because I'm pretty sure it was him. You maybe will remember better, but we had him on the show at Saratoga, and wasn't he the one who said? I got my win a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said you're off the duck, and he'd never heard that before, and so he was just kind of smiling and nodding.
Yeah, he had never heard the expression.
So he said, I just kind of smiled and nodded, and then I had to ask around. All right, let's go. Breeders' Cup, Filly and Mare Turf. Another nice selection there. Moira. I had Moira in my mix. We were up Woodbine Mile weekend, and we actually interviewed Kevin Attard. We talked about Moira. We talked about Full Count Felicia. He's gotten some horses from Al Gold. He's gotten some horses from Mike Rapoli. He trains for X-Men Racing, who had Moira. And Full Count Felicia, that weekend we were up there, the big front-end win in the E.P. Taylor, but a late run from Moira, who was the favorite that day, was a good effort. Well, she flips things around. Full Count Felicia, I went in her direction yesterday. And given the fractions, and she was out in the lead, but I'm kind of curious if maybe she shouldn't have done what she did up at Canada and really used the speed and really opened up. I don't know whether it would have made a difference or not, but she fades late, and number 10, Moira, gets it done. Cinderella's Dream runs second. Didia third. Your thoughts in the Filly and Mare Turf?
Well, I mean, Full Count Felicia was only beaten 3.5 lengths for everything.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree that Irad had an opportunity to let it out a notch. Acknowledge, though, that Manny Franco was staying very close to Full Count Felicia, and she, I'm sure Irad was trying to. That was on Sunset Glory, who was 50-1. I'm sure Irad was trying to balance whether to.
Yeah.
Really, the same decision that was involved in Cogburn. When to go ahead and try to, spurt away from the field. To me, the race absolutely was going to go through Kevin Attard, and the only 2 horses that I used in this leg of anything was Moira, Full Count Felicia. And this was Moira's 3rd try. at a Breeders' Cup. Kevin Attard had the terrible misfortune, bad luck, going back to Keeneland with Starship Jubilee, who, dropped the jock and was a DNF. So he exercises that demon, and this is a wonderful story. Flavian Pratt, his second win on the day, and he's the magician. 6-1, Moira, the third, becomes the third Queen's Plate winner to win a Breeders' Cup, to go with Dan Smartley and Awesome again.
And it was a nice performance there from Moira, as you said, Kevin Attard. And I'm just looking at my papers here because we're going to go by the Classic. We did the Classic, so we will go now to the Breeders' Cup Turf. And it's going to be Rebels Romance getting it done. Another one that I had in my mix, I took a flyer with Wingspan, who at 20-1, the 3-year-old filly winds up running fifth. I thought it was a good effort from the 3-year-old filly. It wasn't good enough that I had that one on top. I didn't get anything for that. But Rebels Romance, no surprises. The favorite gets it done. You mentioned Rusham Park. We'll see a late run from this one at 22-1. That ran very well and winds up just missing. And yeah, as you have said, a lot of folks have made the argument maybe best in here. Shah-Yar in third, Gold Phoenix in fourth. Rebel Romance, however, gets it done for William Buick and Charles Appleby. Your thoughts on the turf?
Well, all week long, I was going to try to find a reason, to go against Rebels Romance. And the more you saw of it during the week, the more you realized that he was a powder keg, and he just looked too good to go against, to be honest. He was an underlay at 2-1, but you had to respect him. So, he was involved on all the tickets. I put Shah-Yar on top with Rousham Park as the value play, and Rebels Romance as the third most likely. And I used Gold Phoenix, who absolutely loves Delmar. He's one of those horses you just have to use there, no matter what he looks like on paper. And so, the Superfecta, $5,400 for $1, if you keyed off of my plays. Rebels Romance was really well written here by Buick. He did spurt away at the top of the stretch, and that made all the difference, because Bear was leaving Rousham Park with way too much to do. I don't know what he was thinking, that on that turf course, he was going to be able to make up all the ground where he was sitting. He was literally last after a mile. So he basically gave the horse, a half a mile to make up, 9 lengths. It just was not a great ride. If he starts his move, even 70 yards, 50 yards earlier, he wins this race. So Lemaire, to me, kind of cost Rousham Park the win. Shah-Yar, last year, speaking of bad rides, Demora was the GOAT last year when he opened up that space. He came back and ran well. This was a good group. I think this was a very formful running of this race. Again, I was really sorry about JRB.
Yeah.
Because I did not see it in the past. I only realized it later on.
Let's move on now to one of the highlights of the afternoon. It was expected to be one of the highlights with I'm talking Distaff, with the showdown between Torpedo Anna and Idiomatic, and then a week and a half or so ago, Idiomatic gets the ding and goes to the sidelines. But we still had Torpedo Anna, and she wasn't invincible. Now with the scratch of the Japanese runner, Awesome Result, that maybe took a little bit of the options for people out of the box. But for me, I thought the the horse that was going to be the real challenge was Raging Sea. And that was the case, as we'll see. Raging Sea is right there and looks to maybe, this could be tough when they turn into the stretch. But no, Torpedo Anna pulls away under Brian Hernandez. The number 2 Torpedo Anna. Raging Sea, a clear second. Candied runs third. But again, it was another tour de force from Torpedo Anna. And I would think there's the buzz on the internet. And it seems like she is sitting potentially, given the results of the rest of the weekend, on a Horse of the Year campaign with this result. Your thoughts in the distaff?
Well, this was really anticlimactic. I mean, you mentioned Idiomatic's departure. What about Adair Manor?
Yeah,
The Baffert filly. We lost her a week earlier or 2 weeks earlier. So all the intrigue about this race evaporated. Then you lose awesome results the morning of the race. The Japanese, the perfect 7-for-7 Japanese filly. And then Kyle Fry inexplicably doesn't do anything with Alice Verite. The whole idea of running Alice Verite in this race, the Japanese turf mare, the filly, the whole idea was to send her to the lead. And she is wickedly fast, and he's sitting fifth with her. I have no idea what went on, if there wasn't an interpreter available or what. But Kyle Fry, that was bizarre. That Alice Verite did not go and try to contest the pace. So this was basically a one-horse coronation.
Do you agree she's sitting on Horse of the Year after the weekend?
Well, who else?
Yeah.
I mean, name another candidate.
Well, and I think it was Andy yesterday. Andy Serling tweeted out, maybe they should consider skipping a year with the older division, because I'll tell you, that will be a tough vote, the older division, with what happened in the Classic and then throughout the whole year. But given that and what Torpedo Anna has done, you would think she's sitting on the Horse of the Year.
I have, in fact, Andy and I and Jay Bridman were all together mid card, hanging out near the paddock, and this actually came up. I mean, at one time, we even floated Cogburn maybe, and that's it. Talk about that in a second. But there's fierceness. If fierceness wins the Classic, then it's an interesting vote between him and her.
Yeah.
But there just isn't anybody else. To be honest.
Nice little feather in the cap also for Saratoga, as she's been training up here really for the majority of the year. Since training's opened up in the spring, she was still up here as recently as, about a week? Last Saturday morning. She was still working up at Oklahoma. So, again, congratulations, Kenny McPeak and the team there. All right, let's go to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. We've alluded to it a couple of times. Cogburn. I put Cogburn on top, but when we did our seminar, I said, can he keep firing at the level he has been doing? Went off at 4-5 yesterday, the number 9 horse. Irad Ortiz had him out in front. And I thought was in a good position on the team. I thought we're going to get another Cogburn performance. But when they turned for home, he gets swallowed up. And amazingly, at 4-5, winds up 5th. It will be Starlust in here at 33-1, getting it done as a Euro shipper. Motorius, the number 2, runs second in a close-up finish amongst the top 3. Ag Bullet runs third in here. But again, an upset in the turf sprint. What were your thoughts?
Well, Cogburn absolutely was traveling like a winner. One issue that was discussed extensively was how he doesn't necessarily have a great first step out of the gate. And that's really the case here. He did not break on top. So and I won't say Arad rushed him up, but he did ask him to go get the lead. The decision to try to get away from the field when he did, I don't know what I should say here. I was with Scott Blasi later on, and I don't think the applicant was happy that Irad tried to win it there. Going into the turn, he thought he could have. You didn't need to ask him to spurt away there. Save that spurt for when they're coming to you, straightening for home, and I think that's what's gonna haunt them a little bit. But look, he had a tremendous year. You talk about year-end honors. I'm not sure where you put him now. Actually, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Is the turf? Is he in the turf division? Is he in the sprint division? Maybe he's your older horse champion. I don't know. Meanwhile, I mentioned earlier Kev Humphreys, a long shot lad who's on with us for years. Kev, this was his long shot play of the weekend, and Rosa Ryan. What a nice story for Rosa. Kev said that this horse was being dirtied up and obscured, and sure enough, emerges from the pack late. It was a tremendous ride by Rosa Ryan. Motorius ran really well. I guess I understand why they had to have a general inquiry on this race, but there was no need to look at it for as long as they did.
Yeah.
There was nothing to see. I mean, you got 12 horses, 11 horses on. You had the scratch of Believing pre-race, and I tell you, there are some people very unhappy that Believing even made the field. There were people that said that Believing wasn't right getting into this race, coming into it. So there's a little bit of a conversation to be had about that here post Cup. Anyway, if you get a race like this, there's going to be some argy-bargy, some rough riding, and there was really nothing to look at. But Motorius ran well. I'll tell you, Richard Baltus, who's on the comeback trail off of a suspension, Baltus's horse ran very well, I thought. Ag Bullet took some money, too, and ran very well. Star of Mystery, he's been good all year. Izzy Bungu Bungu took the worst of things when the rough riding started and then the horses were bouncing around. That South African veteran horse, I think he's saying, look for him going forward. He's okay at it.
And now let's get to it. Again, your bankroll race of the day. We're going to pick up the stretch here. So we're not going to see the back stretch where Soul of an Angel was literally off the screen. Your top pick was so far back. On the other hand, Society, who you also had in the mix, was right up with the pace. And we'll watch them as they come. And Soul of an Angel gets the momentum, and from the back of the pack sweeps by at 19-1. But amazingly, Society, in a ding-dong battle for second, does wind up a nose ahead. And again, I will tip my cap to you because for the bankroll team, Cold exacta box 6 and 8, and the 8 to win. And so you leave out two horses that I had on top, Vava and Ways and Means, and they certainly disappoint. Ways and Means winds up 5th as the 2-1 favorite. Vava, as the third choice, winds up 8th in the field of 9. But again, congratulations there. Soul of an Angel gets it done under Drayden Van Dyke for Safi Joseph. Society runs second under Tyler Gaffleone. And Mr. Bick puts, just looking at adding it up here, about $4,600 in the kitty for the bankroll team. Again, congratulations there. Your thoughts on the Filly and Mare Sprint?
Well, and we'll talk about the handicapping of this race. I mean, when you sat down, obviously Society, Ways and Means, Baba, and Silla, those were the four horses that were going to make the most sense. Society was the horse, though. To me, was the horse to beat. The way in which he was handled all year long, this was their only interest, was this spot. So she basically gets geared up with the ballerina and, was coming here as really the horse that was the focus. When you look at a race like this, the idea is to go find somebody that's going to be a price who has got things going for her. And as it happens, the Filly and Mare Sprint is a race where horses like Soul of an Angel have done very well. You think about Bar of Gold, and you think about Musical Romance, and veteran horses, veteran fillies, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds that are hard hitting. Even Goodnight Olive, who was sort of a crossover, that went from being a filly to a mare. This horse was going to be an overlay at anything, 10 to 1 and above. That Princess Rooney she ran made her competitive with all the best in here. Then you fold in the Drayden Van Dyke equation. This is the best story in terms of the jock. This is the best story of the weekend. Drayden Van Dyke, his career was on the rocks. There's no other way to explain it. And he had to reinvent himself. He left California, went to Florida, ends up latching on to the Sappy Joseph Barnes, refocused, getting on horses in the morning, lands this horse, comes back to a place where he has always ridden well. He has even better on the turf, frankly, Drayden Van Dyke at Del Bar. But he knows when to move. And he was so patient here. And I could not have been, it's really the day started and ended with some tears. With the ring at the end and Drayden Van Dyke at the beginning. Can't wait to have him on the radio this week. Nick Casada, Slam Dunk Racing, who of course campaigned that nice Drain the Clock, who's now standing as a sire, had a very good sale at Saratoga 2 weeks ago. Drain the Clock with his weanling.
Yeah.
Nick Casada's son is his agent. Very pleased for Drayden Van Dyke. And then, of course, the hit for $41 winner. And I'll be honest, I was very lucky. I didn't think we won the photograph with Pleasant, with Stafford Philly. I thought Scott Blasey and I were watching together. Scott thought they lost the photo for second. So got a little lucky to win that photo, and that made the day special, hitting for 4,700.
Yeah, congratulations again there. Yeah, Drayden Van Dyke, you're right. That's a nice story because it wasn't that long ago, some accountable in months, made the move to Florida to kind of see if he could get the career going again. And I think it was a little bit of an experiment. I don't think he was even committed, but it seemed like he got off to a very good start again, teamed up with Safi, and so it's made a little buzz down there in Florida now, and to then come back, you're right, with a win in the Breeders' Cup. Congratulations there as well. All right, let's take a quick look at some of the Friday juvenile races. We'll start with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. It will be number 4, Magnum Force, getting it done in a race that is relatively new on the schedule. And Wesley Ward got it off to a start a few years back. But now the Europeans have been kind of dominant, and they continued. Magnum Force getting it done at $27. Arizona Blaze runs second at 27 to 1, and Governor Sam third at 8 to 1. The favorite in here was the Japanese horse, Ikuro Siege, who kind of maybe alluded to how the weekend would go, albeit with a little trouble in the race. Really never had any kind of a run there. Was kind of getting juggled around. And that one winds up again as the favorite, running 8th in the field of 12. But your thoughts in the Juvenile Turf Sprint?
Well, there were some people making cases for Magnum Force. My man Kev, David Arizona liked him as well. We talked about the trainer, Gerald Lyons, with Nick Luck during the week. Gerald Lyons is a upcomer. Arizona Blaze, I know that Eddie Olczyk, pre-race, I actually saw the video feed where Eddie Olczyk was talking about Arizona Blaze as a good price key. Governor Sam was very good in here. I thought he would burn up trying to chase a Coro C. Never even sniffed the lead. Gets the day off. Gets the really Friday's action was very heavily geared towards Euros. Yeah. Because of course Aiden O'Brien is going to win the other 2 turf races.
The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. I thought the two most likely winners, I'm not saying anything that anybody else didn't see, but the two most likely winners were Immersive and Torpedo Anna. That's kind of the way it played out. But given that, I thought the 2-1 was kind of fair on Immersive, given what she's done so far. So you wound up with an even $6. Immersive winning pretty convincingly. Another one that you would think sewed up an Eclipse Award on the weekend. Vodka with a Twist runs second under IRAD for Phil D'Amato, Southern California based runner coming out of a couple of nice efforts right here at Del Mar prior to this. And Quick Kick runs third. Scottish Lassie fourth. But as the favorite, it is Immersive. Manny Franco on top for Brad Cox. Thoughts on the juvenile fillies?
You make a good point. I hadn't really noticed the 2-1 until now. $6 was and $4 to place.
Yeah.
was a very liberal price on Immersive. Vodka with a Twist. You bring up Phil D'Amato. Phil had 2 seconds and a fourth. In terms of somebody that didn't win on the weekend, he did win a stake on the weekend, but it was one of the undercard stakes. But Phil had a very good Breeders' Cup without winning. Quick Kick. I thought Quick Kick was the fun price to play around with. And, of course, the huge disappointment here was American Bikini, who had beaten the boys in Japan, and she stunk. She chased and stopped like a absolute anchor. But Immersive, your 2-year-old
Juvenile Phillies Turf. I think a lot of people came away very impressed with Lake Victoria at 3-5. A lot of people thought she was one of the locks of the weekend. I wasn't on board there. I had her right underneath, but I took a shot with Nitrogen in here. Again, given that we were up at Woodbine that weekend, I used her in the Natalma at 41-1, and she just gets caught for third. Being on the front end, gets caught late for third, and late in the race, I thought she's going to get it done. So I had to stick with Nitrogen. But Friday, she's going to be the number 2 horse here. A totally different style. She comes like a freight train at the end and winds up third again for me at 49-1. So I probably have to be on her again next time as well. But it is Lake Victoria getting it done. Mayday Ready, the number 12, a good second at 13-1. And again, at 49-1, Nitrogen, a nice late running third. But your thoughts in the Juvenile Phillies Turf?
This was a very, for a race that was won easily by a quality filly that usually Coolmore and O'Brien doesn't bring. She's the champion 2-year-old in Europe, and they usually leave these at home to get ready for the Oaks Trail in the UK. Beyond her, though, there were so many fun horses to consider, including Nitrogen, which is a great call by you. How about Joe Lee showing up at his first Breeders' Cup with Mayday Ready? She was terrific. A lot of people thought Fiery Lucy was a very usable price. The question to be asked here, speaking of Phil D'Amato, what exactly was the hurry for Hector Berrios? What was he doing going as fast as he did with thought process? I don't know where the fire was. And that was very strange. And it really cost her. She ends up 9th in here, beating about 5 lengths. But I didn't get that. It's the only horse I thought that could beat Lake Victoria was thought process, and she was given no opportunity by the way in which she was handled by Barry.
You're right, though. Coming in with a couple of Group 1s, that was an unusual move from the Euros. Usually it's kind of like the second string or the A- runner. So she came in and certainly lived up to it in that race. The juvenile, the 2-year-olds, this one was and again, congratulations to you. You nailed it with Citizen Bull at a price. I like Chancellor McPatrick. I just thought his races so far, with some adversity, had been very good. But Chancellor McPatrick doesn't really get it done, obviously finishing 6th. The favorite was East Avenue. Had some trouble, obviously, at 9-5. Winds up running 9th in the field of 10. But it's Bob Baffert, 1-2 with Citizen Bull and Gaming running first and second. Hill Road runs third in here, but Martin Garcia on board as well. So a nice little victory on the West Coast for Citizen Bull. Your thoughts? And again, congratulations. That was your top. And for folks who not just following the bankroll, but you always post your picks over on your website too, so folks can follow your picks that way. And Citizen Bull was right on top. So thoughts on the Juvenile?
Well, Citizen Bull, I thought was being underappreciated coming into this. I thought his win in the American Pharoah was better than people were, essentially rating it. And then every workout analyst, starting with our own Callie Francois, Callie at the races betting companion, she raved about the workout. Toby Terrell for DRS raved about the way he was working. And Andy Harrington, National Turf, has said that he had absolutely come forward since the American Pharoah. So I was keying off of him no matter what, and I didn't ever expect that he would go off at 16-1. Now, with all of that said, and hitting a horse at 33.80 is great. It's not the analytic that I'm actually proud of. The one I'm proud of is Hill Road. If you go to the pick, you'll see that I wrote, try to work Hill Road into your plays as a first-time dirt, a horse that's bred top and bottom out of a Lemon Drop Kid Bear and had every reason to be successful on the dirt. This is also the kind of horse that I use as what we call the reverse tri-key. And by doing that, we end up hitting a $1,500 trifecta for 50 cents. And it isn't, yes, you got to find winners, but you also, on this weekend, you also get to use horses like this that make the weekend and can make your year as a horse player. This horse was 60-1. It's ridiculous. He was better bred for dirt than the Japanese horses to some degree. And, the Japanese horses went off one went off at triggered the horse, but the other one, Shin Belief, was 36. I just thought that he was a horse that you could really use to your advantage. So this was a great result. I was pretty. I went home Friday pretty tight.
And I saw that on the page. That was very clever because you specifically said, take a look at this one underneath. And it was the second longest price on the board at 61-1. So if people took a look at your thoughts, it was definitely worth throwing in. And again, just the East Coast 2-year-olds did not fare well on Friday in the Juvenile.
Well, but East Avenue's race was over 2 jumps in.
Yeah.
So you can't, like Brendan Wolf said, just put a line.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, and we'll wrap up the discussion here, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And I will just tip my cap to you here as well, listening to the show during the week where you were out at Del Mar. It was a fun interview with Rachel King, who I was totally unfamiliar with, and she had a ride in this race, and you guys talked about it. She had the unique triple, and then I think Migliori texted you because you were speculating maybe she was the only one, but he texted, and I think it was another 3 like titans of the jockeys room had done it, but she had a ride at Royal Ascot, she had a ride in the Breeders' Cup, and she's going to have a ride in the Melbourne Cup as well. So I mentioned that. Now, she wound up 9th in here, but it was fun to hear the interview, certainly, so nice job there. But as we watch the replay, it's going to be number 13, Henri Matisse, getting it done under Ryan Moore for Aidan O'Brien. Went off as the favorite. Lukewarm 7-2. Iron Man Cal second. Aomori City runs third. Your thoughts in the Juvenile Turf?
Well, it's interesting when you look at this chart how 3 of the horses out of the superfecta were all wide posted, and The super ends up 13, 6, 12, 11. And so I actually discounted the horses that were outposted personally. And, that cost me. I thought the disappointment here was Menti. I thought him stretching out from the sprint, I thought it was a natural for him to stretch out. He was awful. It's 46-1, and he ends up stopping. I don't know if he bled or what happened, but he was eased over the line.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Henri Matisse ends up, this is Ryan Moore at that. Ironman Cal, here's another second place finish for Phil D'Amato. So Phil had 3 seconds on the weekend. And this was a horse that we talked about with Billy Koch, Little Red Setter. And they were very excited. Of course, named after Cal Ripken. And he looked like a winner in deep stretch. And then here came Henri Matisse, much the same way later on that yesterday that the Cherise horse, the More Than Look, kind of won the same way.
There it is. There's your Breeders' Cup weekend. It was a fun weekend. We've kind of touched on it already a little bit, but at least a couple of eclipses sewn up with Torpedo. Well, Torpedo Anna may have a couple on her own with the Horse of the Year, but Immersive also. But we didn't mention, we kind of, again, alluded to it a little bit, but I have a feeling the weekend may have locked up the Jockey Eclipse as well for Flavien Prat.
I would hope so. He's been overdue for one. So, so Pratt, the 3-year-old boat, what happens now? Sierra Leone, Pearson?
With the weight given to the class, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to have to re-look. That is up in the air. There are a number of them. Again, the older division, I really have no idea at this point. And normally you get out of Breeders' Cup weekend, and I think you have more eclipses sewn up than will be after this weekend. But that maybe just makes the last couple of months more interesting if folks want another shot to make their claim to fame.
Yeah, I always kind of struggle in the immediate aftermath of this when it comes to these decisions. I'll be looking at the charts on the flight home and trying to figure it out. But the first priority, of course, is to have as many of the winning connections on as possible. It was a very fun 2 days. Some really good stories and some exciting races. Obviously, some great opportunities for players. Even if you didn't do well, just remember you can play today, and the money you make today will spend just as well as the money you didn't win yesterday.
It's just as green and spendable today. Yeah, good point. When you mentioned it earlier, I pulled up the BCBC leaderboard. The winner, Stephen Wells, $152,000. So interested to hear the week with the players, the jockeys, the trainers, the owners, and whatnot. But at some point, maybe you can grab, because it's all, I think the BCBC, it's live money for folks who don't know. You put $10,000 gets you in, $2,500 goes into the pool. You play with $7,500. So he turned his $7,500 into $152,000. That doesn't count the prize, the top prize. But it's interesting. I think most of these guys try to make money, make money. And then I think they push all in the last race or the next to the last race. It's always intriguing to hear the strategy.
Well, and I'm just looking. Here's Stephen Wells's. He had a $6,000 bet, so he must have been secure with his lead because he didn't hit his last bet. Our friend Tyler Hoffman actually moved up, I think, significantly.
Do you know, sitting fourth, do you know Kevin Strom? Because at one point, I was following yesterday, and at one point, late in the day, he took the lead, and so I kind of was curious, looked up his name, and he finished third last year, and the article said he's from Niskayuna.
I've seen the name on the contest board, but I don't know him. I know Ken McMahon, who had a big finish. He had the late double for what looks to be $75,000. Our friend Ed Peters, longtime finished sixth. Ed, a good friend that has been on the Derby Trail for years, known as Fantini. Ed Peters finished sixth. I mentioned Tyler Hoffman. He hit for $100,000 with the exacta in the dirt mile. He had a $2,000 straight exacta.
Oh, I'm just seeing that. Oh, and he gets back $100,000 and jumps 15 places to number. Yeah, and it's always interesting to hear the strategies of these guys. And then I'll tell people, people can go pull up the leaderboard for themselves. Scroll down to the bottom of the list, and there'll be a lot of familiar names that have zero because they did just that. They pushed all in, and it's win or lose, and it's always interesting. They all have a financial situation that is very different from. I think I'd be a little chicken to push in if I had $45,000 or whatever. But that's congratulations to all of them, particularly at the top of the list. Steve, appreciate the boots on the ground. Always appreciate that. And you're headed back today, and if so, travel safe.
This Get home late tonight. I think Tina said she was listening earlier. She's got to pick me up at close to 1 a.m. This morning, tomorrow morning. So thanks to Tina.
And again, travel safe. Appreciate on behalf of everybody on the listener side of things your work with the radio show this past week. And once again, appreciate on behalf of Capital OTB and the team a great Breeders' Cup bankroll. Congratulations on that. So again, appreciate the visit this morning and travel safe.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate it. And it really is a treat to make that money for people. It's a real added pleasure.
Everybody gets to stick $270 in their pocket. Very nice. Thanks, Steve. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to wrap it up here for Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I will remind you, as always on Sundays, it's a football Sunday here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Come on down, watch all the racing action and all the football action. You can do that every Sunday throughout the NFL season. So make sure to stop down. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, I will wrap it up because I just noticed they're underway with the pregame show in New York. So we'll send it there. It looks like they've been underway for a while. I didn't realize. I'm not sure what the start time is today, but 12:10 today is. Oh, the early start today. There you go. So we'll send it to the pregame show. You can catch the wrap up there. I'll be back with a 12:10 start. I'll be back in less than an hour to kick off OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to it. See you then.
Watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.